Hey guys, I've been getting a lot of questions on how to get a hold of me for questions and how to ask me questions and stuff like that, and why I don't respond to comments and everything. I try to respond on comments pretty good on YouTube. Studies have shown that actually increases your YouTube earnings, so I try to put a little bit of time into answering questions. The problem is answering questions on here, all I can do is reply. I can't send you a picture or a diagram, and it's not the best. I tried the MoPuppy question answer Facebook page. That just turned into a for sale page because you guys all ruined it, and then Facebook also censored it to death. So I'm going to go through and try to answer some questions on these comments and also probably roast some of these funnier comments, but please don't be sensitive. It's all in good fun. This is all public on the internet so people can see it anyways, in case you hadn't noticed. Also, when I go in here to answer questions, I always filter by subscribers. So if you're not a subscriber, please like and subscribe, especially if you want me to respond to your comment, because I don't even look at other comments. Thanks for the compliment, Mark. Yeah, we like to break stuff, and we usually get some pretty good comments on that stuff. So actually, these are comments for just one video. Let's go to all of my comments. That way we can go through a full list. Here we go. Public subscribers. Okay, so this first one, Can-Am rear suspension actually goes away when it compresses towards the back. Yes, I agree. This trailing arm is cool, so as you hit a bump, the wheel travels farther away from the floorboard because it swings on an arc. However, once you lift it, it swings into the floorboard, or if you do a wheelie and the weight unloads, it swings into the floorboard. Or if you get airborne, it swings into the floorboard. So with these 33s, I had to do some minor floorboard mods, but I do like the rear suspension setup on Can-Ams, mostly because there's no lower control arm to drag through the mud. Hey Mud Puppy, I bought a Honda 300 54% gear reduction. I was wondering what the biggest tire I can turn. What the biggest tire I can turn has turned into a meme in itself. These questions annoy me, mostly because people ask them wrong. I don't mind telling you my opinion on how big a tire you should run, but you got to tell me, where you ride. Are you in southern Louisiana with blackjack, or are you in Florida where I ride, where it's mostly sand and water? That makes a really big difference. Also, the type of tire makes a big difference. So, are you trying to find an all-terrain? You want a serious mud tire? A 30 Zilla is a lot different than a 29.5 Assassinator. But in general, to answer your question, AJ the Great, I think a 29.5 Outlaw 1 Skinny is about as big as an aggressive tire I would go on a Honda 300 54%. Any bigger than that, you're just going to be slipping clutches and going through clutch baskets, and it's not fun. If you water ride, you could go a little bigger. If you're going to run an Aztec, you could definitely run a 30, even a 32, especially in water, because those tires spin easier than just about any other tire. And you can definitely run a 30-inch Zilla, but on a light bike, like a 300, the Zillas are going to float, and you're going to be flipping over all the time, and they just don't have enough grip. Okay. This guy says, Abercrombie Jr. says you should run your winch line behind your front bumper. That's a good point. I should do that. When you're pushing people out, you can cut the line. I used it a lot on this ride, so it came on and off, but I probably should tuck it behind there. Do you use fuel to quick clean an engine? No, it's generally a bad idea. People say it's bad for the seals. I don't really care about the seals. What I'm concerned about is if you put any kind of solvent like that in the engine, it actually will push the lubrication off of the connecting rod and the crank bearings and stuff. And then when you go to start it up, you've got a dry rod, and that's not a good idea. I really stay away from using fuel. If your engine's that swamped, you got a bunch of crap in the case, pull the front clutch cover, rinse it out with carburetor cleaner, let that completely evaporate, put the clutch cover back on, fill up with oil, crank it over with the spark plug boot removed, lubricate everything, then start it up. But I've seen people damage their motors and ruin connecting rods and wrist pins putting fuel in there. Impressive stuff as always. Thanks, Mark. You got to get a P1000. I really want a P1000. Unfortunately, the 2022s are very delayed. I've seen one delivered so far. I'm constantly bugging the dealerships I buy stuff from, trying to get one. I really like all the upgrades on the 2022 P1000. If you're interested in that, check out this video right here where I talk about the changes. Land Cruiser Beast, I agree. Honda Witchcraft, I agree. What current lies? You just lost it. Thanks, Darwin. Yeah, there definitely was some current, and I was about 5 feet deep. And when you get on a water wheelie, any amount of current will push the bike over backwards, right? The fenders are just like a parachute. But I was also a little inebriated in that video when I sunk the Rubicon. Did the Defender come back to life? It sure did. If you want to see it come back to life, there's a long version of this gnarly ride video I just posted where we got more video of that Defender. He stalled out. We're not really sure why. And then water went up the exhaust, and it was very hydraulic. I had to pull both spark plugs. Fortunately, the spark plugs on a Defender are easier to get to than on a Renegade. Awesome video. I'm in your neck of the woods. I want to put 44s on a Talon. So I don't really recommend putting 44s on a Talon. mine did really well like that. The Aztecs are pretty light. Problem is the Talon X is pretty short and skinny, so I lost some stability. It wanted to flip over backwards doing water wheelies, wanted to flip over sideways and stuff. It was just too tall. I liked it a lot better on 38s because I like to ride pretty quick. If you had a Talon R, you could, and 8-inch portals, 44s would probably work better for you. But again, I think it's more reasonable to put 38s. Also, the problem with putting a huge tire on a Talon right now is there aren't any great ball joint options for the top and bottom. Once we get some better, like once Keller makes them for the top and bottom, I'd feel better about it. But the stock ball joints are definitely at their limit on a 44. You're kind of asking for trouble. And the Super ATV ball joints are trash. Had a couple of those come apart. Question, we're on the topic of hydrolocking. I took my Formula a little deep. It stalled out. I was able to get it fired up, but now it won't run. Carburetor sucks, something like that. Oh, man, it's a long comment. Okay, this would be a great comment for the Patreon page. So you're asking me to give you some serious advice to save you a bunch of money so you don't take your bike somewhere and have a professional work on it, which is fine. I don't mind doing that. But it's hard to do on YouTube. I rarely respond to these long posts. So if you want to respond to a question like this, you can check out my Patreon page. This is it right here. You can go on here, and it is $2 a month. It's not free. But I post a lot of helpful how-to things on here. Some videos only get posted on here. I post almost all my videos early. There's, I don't know, 154 posts on here already. And if you get on here, you can message me directly. There are 85 spots remaining. I'm going to limit it so that way I can actually give people direct feedback on stuff. And it doesn't get super blown up huge like the stupid Facebook page where it turns into Craigslist. But yeah, you can comment on my post and you can message me directly. And I have notifications turned on here, so I'll respond to you. And I'll help you out, send you a snippet from manual, help you troubleshoot stuff, whatever. But this is the only place I'm really going to respond something more than a few words because I just don't have time. And Facebook is terrible, and Instagram is the same thing as Facebook, so I don't really use them all that much. Okay. But anyways, to answer this dude's question, you didn't tell me the year, and I don't know if it's a 4-valve or a 2-valve 500. It could be a 4-valve Rubicon. But most likely your problem is that you got water in your gas and your carburetor. So someone did comment that, drain the tank and the carb. You probably need to clean out the carb too. And there's a fuel filter in the tank on the petcock. You probably need to clean that out also. But that's just a guess. I could help you troubleshoot it if you were on the Patreon page. Rubicons are great. This guy's asking about holopaws. Let him know you got to own property out there. You can usually find wet lots for $1,400 on Craigslist to get a key. But it's not public property, and if you try to sneak in the gate, most people out there will run you off. Looks like a lot of fun. Too bad the electronics are a limiting factor. Do you think the 300 is better for this? The 300 is better if you just stay underwater and you spend a lot of time getting the carburetor snorkeled right. Put a 4X carburetor on there, seal it up really well. 300s just love water. When you sink them, they're easier to unhydrolock and flush. The crankcases don't hold as much water and mud in the bottom of them. But the problem with the 300 is it takes forever to get to the water. So if you're at a place like Holopaw where you got to cover a lot of ground, I always get rid of my 300s because they're just too small, not enough suspension, not enough power to really cover ground. The Rubicon, if you know what you're doing, you can rip on those things, especially on smaller tires. Someone else had problems with their Ram. Yep, I am not happy with it. I'm very disappointed in that truck. Don't really know what this comment's referring to. Someone got a Rubicon with 29s on it. Something's clicking in the back. Yeah, it's probably an axle. I'd just get you a Demon axle for the rear, throw it on the left side. If that fixes it, leave it there. And if it doesn't fix it, try it on the right side. Most of the time, it's an axle clicking. If you got a used Rubicon that's been through a lot of mud and water, there's a chance it could be the bearings in the diff starting to go out. But the Rubicon rear diffs are pretty good, especially if you're on the 30 or lower. You don't really have any rear diff issues. The rear diffs usually last up until about 35s, and then you start ripping them off the frame. Anything? Do you know? Ever been around any Articat 700s? No, I don't really mess with Articats or know anyone that rides with them. They don't survive long enough to make it down the trails I go on. Anyways, you should put a pipe on her. Not a chance. I hate loud pipes. They're obnoxious and inconsiderate to everyone around you. Great video. Thanks, Cobb. Are these new 520s easy to bring up on a wheelie? Are they easier than previous models? Not really. The horsepower is very similar. They have a little more torque, so they might be easier to water wheelie if you have big tires, I guess. But water wheeling is all about just finesse and throttle control and body language. So I think you should, just practice getting into the water, coming to a stop almost, wait till you feel the front end kind of want to float up naturally, and then roll in the throttle and lean back. I don't think the 520 is really easier than anything else. The Rubicon is the easiest thing in the world to water wheelie, though. That is a fact. I've been able to shift mine into second and third gear on wheelies. It's just such an awesome machine. I haven't really tried a double clutch too much. I don't even know, will those shift on a wheelie? That could be interesting because they shift quick. This guy said I deserve 1,000,000 subs. Thanks to 2003 Honda Foreman guy. And then everyone talks shit about my attitude, especially my biggest fan, 1993 Cobra. Trust me, guys, if you had to answer as many questions as I do every day, and a lot of these questions are real repetitive and boring, you'd probably have a bit of an attitude yourself. Thanks, man. Thank you. How can I DM you? Aha, Patreon page. We already talked about that. There's a link to it. By the way, if you're trying to find any of my information, Patreon pages, whatever, in the description of every video, there is a link to my Patreon page. There's my gear reduction email address. So if you're in Central Florida and you need a gear reduction, this is where you can get a hold of me at, or Patreon works great. Here's the promo code for the Aztecs. They get you 5% off Aztecs by typing in Mudpuppy at the last page of the checkout process. And Demon Axle promo code. So you type in Mudpuppy5 for extreme axles for 5% off. But for almost all their products, their HD axles and all that other stuff, you get 15% off. So it's a big savings. Mudpuppy 15. It also goes in during the checkout process. And if you don't know how to find the description of the videos, you on your phone, you just kind of swipe up and then hit more info description. And on the if you're watching them on your computer, the description pops up at the bottom. So descriptions always have a lot of good stuff in there. Let's go back to answer a few more comments. I'm getting a little tired of this, but let's see how many we can go. 60K for a Tundra, screw that. So the Tundra is actually one of the more reasonably priced trucks. Let me show you a little spreadsheet I threw together a couple days ago. So I have a buddy who's looking for a cheaper truck, and I'm also thinking about getting a cheaper truck because I want another sports car. And this Dodge is really ticking me off for how expensive it is. I'm getting terrible customer service, and I have a lot of issues. So I want to get rid of the Dodge, and I want something that's better off-road because the Dodge, four-wheel drive barely works and it gets stuck. So here's some pretty reasonable truck options. You can get a base model Tundra 4x4 for under $43,000. All these prices include the delivery fee plus MSRP. That's a really good deal. One thing to point out is that the base model Tundra has less horsepower than the SR5s, Limiteds, etc. Like 40 less horsepower, or is that 40? That's 50 less horsepower. Wow, that's pretty significant. 390 and 340. So less horsepower, but it's cheap. So these are the ones I would consider. I really like this Pro 4X. As you can see, it's a lot of yellow, which means it's in the middle of the road for a lot of this stuff. It's got more power than a Tacoma. It's got, a little bit of a lift on it. It's got decent sized tires. Actually, I don't even know if it has a lift, but it does have some better shocks. But you can see the problem with the Tundra off-road is that its approach angle is terrible. It's 10 degrees worse than all these other trucks, and that's kind of annoying. The chin on the Tundra hangs down real low. I do like the TRD off-road because you can get it in a manual, but the Tacoma's outdated. A new one's coming out next year. But yeah, so there's a thing right there. I think the Tundra is great value for money. And 60K for a Tundra, I just paid almost 80 for that Ram I have by the time you get out the door. So really not too bad, especially because the Tundra is going to be awesome off-road once you put a little lift on it and some 35s, because it's got a great four-wheel drive system and a rear locker. Yep, someone emailed me about the portals. Thank you for helping me figure out if that would work. You can put the 4-inch gear into a 6-inch portal. Someone had a problem with their snorkel. Yep, it's just the cap probably. Your Foreman shutting off in deep water. Some of them do it worse than others. You just got to kind of stay on the throttle. I like to hold the back brake to make the clutch slip a little bit. Then when I'm in really deep water and I'm going to flip over backwards. If you really like riding deep water and you don't want to shut off, the best thing to do is put a stall clutch kit in it. I hate them for everything but water. But you can put a centrifugal clutch stall on there, and then you can keep the RPMs up higher without moving it. That'll help you run underwater. But I don't know a good fix for this. I've tried the Copper 90, the O2 Delete tuners. I don't know a good fix. I did just order a tuner for my Rubicon because I think the 520s are tuned a little lean for the EPA stuff, so we'll see how that goes. Let's see if some of these other ones I can answer quickly. I'm getting pretty tired of this. I need help, Mud Puppy. Yes, you probably need to get on the Patreon page. Mr. Praise Jesus. That's a long comment. Yeah. Yep, so, yep, these are the comments I get all the time. This guy, Marshall Mims, that sucks. He just got a Tundra, a 2022. It's pretty cool. I bug him about it all the time. He likes it so far, but the gas mileage is not great. He's getting like 17. I was hoping it'd get better than that. Someone said I should get a Rebel. A Rebel is the exact same truck as mine, literally, because the Rebel has a little suspension lift. But if you get air suspension, which you should on a Ram, because it's the only thing on the truck that's cool and that works, it's the same exact shock, same exact hardware on the Rebel and all the other ones. So, yeah, everyone says I should get a Power Wagon. No, way too slow, way too underpowered, way too outdated. I love the lockers, but that thing needs a lot more horsepower to make up for how heavy it is. And I just don't need a 2500. It's just overkill for me. You're off-roading on highway tires? No, I'm not. And that's not why it got stuck. It got stuck because the four-wheel drive stopped working. Yes, it's technically not true 4x4 hydraulic clutches similar to a Volkswagen. So a lot of these trucks actually use electrical clutches, and so does the Volkswagen. Like the Golf R and a lot of the four-wheel drive Audis and a lot of the trucks, the cars like that, use a clutch to engage the rear wheels. This is a little different. It uses the clutch to engage the front wheels. I'm not sure if it's hydraulic or electric, but any truck that has 4x4 auto has a clutch, because then that way the computer can engage and disengage the front wheels automatically. And I don't like that, which is one of the reasons I'm thinking about getting one of the smaller off-road trucks, because they have a real four-wheel drive system that's, splined and gear to gear. But yeah, pretty pathetic Ram. Yeah, Dodge, what did you expect? I know. Where do you get one of those winches? So this guy's talking about my more power puller I pulled the Ram out with. You can find them on Amazon. This is the one I use. It's pretty expensive for a come-along, but it's got 35 feet of rope on it, and I cannot break it. I've had mine for 10 years, and they are just phenomenal. I've pulled out Land Cruisers, dump trucks, etc. with this thing. They're just phenomenal. But there you go. Someone also said, why don't you post links in your descriptions? Well, because I can post this link and it'll expire in a day, and then someone's gonna be like, oh, your link's expired. I'm not going to go back and update links. Sorry, YouTube doesn't pay me enough to do all that crap. Use your Google power and find those stuff yourself. I buy almost everything on eBay. So if you search on eBay, you will find what you need. Okay, that's enough question answers for now. Like I said, like and subscribe. Subscribers help me get more money from YouTube, and more money from YouTube helps me buy more four-wheelers, and that means I can break more stuff and entertain you guys. But I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know in the comments. I'm sure you will. I might start doing these more often, because if I answer questions in this format, at least I'm getting paid something to do it, versus having to do everything for free, and I don't like doing stuff for free.